Before the billion-dollar franchises, before the $20 million paychecks, before the very earth seemed to tremble when he walked, there was only the boy. A boy born into the brutal, transient world of professional wrestling. But the boy carried a weight far heavier than any championship belt, a destiny he had yet to earn, and an early crushing failure that threatened to end his story before the first chapter had even been written. The mythology of Dwayne Johnson begins not on the sun-drenched beaches of Hollywood, but in the bleak reality of a childhood marked by extreme financial instability. Born in Hayward, California in 1972, Dwayne Douglas Johnson inherited the bloodline of wrestling royalty. His grandfather, Peter Maivia, was a Samoan chief, and his father, Rocky Johnson, was a trailblazing black Nova Scotian wrestler. Yet, lineage did not equate to luxury. The family's life was a nomadic cycle dictated by the meager, unpredictable paychecks of the wrestling circuit, a constant, exhausting migration across America and into New Zealand. It was a life of cheap motels, eviction notices, and the gnawing hunger of genuine poverty. This instability shattered any semblance of normal adolescence. By age 15, in a small apartment in Honolulu, the financial spiral hit its devastating low point. Dwayne Johnson and his mother, Atta, returned home to find a cruel, silent executioner, a padlock on the door, and an eviction notice taped over the peephole. The car had already been repossessed a week earlier. Witnessing his mother break down, shattered and weeping on the curb, became Johnson's first defining psychological trauma. It was an image, the absolute powerlessness of a man-child watching his family fail, that would haunt and propel him for decades. The psychological toll of these years was immense. Though never diagnosed with a learning disability like dyslexia, Johnson openly details a lifelong struggle with clinical depression. This was not the transient sadness of a young man, but a crushing emotional void that would strike him in 3 devastating waves over his life. The first came in those vulnerable teenage years, compounded by the horrifying moment he had to physically pull his own mother back from walking into oncoming traffic in a suicide attempt. It was a dark baptism into the reality that the strongest man in the room could still be utterly broken inside. To survive, Johnson turned to a dangerous form of self-medication, an almost pathological obsession with physical perfection, and briefly with teenage delinquency, engaging in fights and petty theft rings. He forged the man he thought he needed to be in the weight room, carving away the boy who was once powerless. This physical shell eventually earned him an athletic scholarship to the University of Miami, a glimmer of hope shattered by a career-ending shoulder injury, and once again, the shock of being cut from the Canadian Football League with a mere $7 to his name. The cycle of poverty and failure had returned. The wrestling ring, the family business he had initially resisted, was now his last, terrifying resort. It was here, in the spectacle of the squared circle, that the people's champion was forged, a character of unmatched charisma and volcanic energy, designed to cover the deep, lingering scars of the boy who had once lost everything. The moment Dwayne Johnson, under the mantle of The Rock, began his meteoric ascent in the WWF, his personal life became inextricably linked to a formidable intellectual counterpoint. Danny Garcia, a Cuban-American former collegiate athlete and ambitious finance executive he had met at the University of Miami, became his wife and the mother of his first daughter. Their marriage coincided with the peak of the Attitude Era and Johnson's subsequent daring transition into Hollywood. This was a relationship built not on quiet domesticity, but on a shared, fierce ambition that defined a hidden control dynamic. She was the architect, the strategic mind. He was the charismatic vessel. While the public expected a brutal Hollywood divorce to cap the end of their 10-year marriage in 2007, the reality was far more complex and strategically brilliant. Instead of devolving into a financial war, the two executed an amicable separation that was, in fact, an elevation of their professional partnership. Dani Garcia, an accomplished figure in her own right, resigned from her career in finance to become Johnson's full-time manager and strategic advisor. This move cemented the real power dynamic. The personal turbulence was contained, but the professional partnership was magnified into a ruthless, globe-spanning business machine. There were, however, immense internal conflicts and financial pressure points. The separation triggered Johnson's second major bout of clinical depression, the emotional aftermath of ending a decade-long partnership, combined with the crushing pressure of his early, often failed Hollywood efforts. The early films were underwhelming, and the financial exposure was immense. They faced the daunting task of rebranding a legendary wrestler into a legitimate actor, a move fraught with the risk of financial ruin and industry mockery. Garcia was instrumental in shifting his focus from simply acting to producing. Co-founding Seven Bucks Productions, this company, named for the exact amount Johnson possessed after his CFL career failed, became the engine of their shared multi-billion-dollar empire. This unique, post-divorce collaboration, where an ex-wife became the strategic final boss of his career, proved to be their greatest triumph, demonstrating a partnership so resilient it transcended marriage itself. The emotional cost of this high-stakes venture, the daily professional reliance on a former spouse, was the price of building the most powerful celebrity brand in modern entertainment. The period following the professional elevation of his partnership with Dani Garcia necessitated a fundamental change in his personal life. The constant, intense pressure of their collaboration, though immensely successful, lacked the genuine, quiet anchor of a true domestic partner. Johnson began his second major relationship with Lauren Hashian, a talented singer and daughter of the late Boston drummer Sib Hashian, a partnership that represented a deliberate shift from the high-octane professional dynamics of his first marriage to a search for grounded stability. This relationship was marked not by the public chaos and sensationalism of celebrity addiction or dramatic legal separation, but by the quiet turbulence of a global superstar attempting to find genuine footing. As his career exploded into the A-list stratosphere, the demands of maintaining a personal life became a monumental logistical challenge. Hashian was required to navigate the complex, intertwined reality of Johnson's life, a man who still worked daily with his ex-wife manager while traveling the globe and fathering 2 new children with her. The separation from the hyper-professional dynamic with Garcia was crucial, allowing Johnson to embrace a new role, the girl dad. He often spoke publicly about the importance of being present, an overt repudiation of his own, often absent, struggling father. The true struggle in this chapter was less one of public drama and more of balance, of reconciling the identity of The Rock, the world's most in-demand actor and businessman, with the identity of Dwayne, the devoted husband and father craving normalcy. This domestic evolution was the quiet, necessary foundation that allowed him to take the professional risks that lay ahead, securing his emotional ballast against the inevitable, unforgiving waves of his ever-expanding career. The ascent to global supremacy is never without its necessary compromises and inevitable scrutiny. Dwayne Johnson's carefully curated image of natural, monumental physique and indomitable health has repeatedly come under pressure from both the media and the courts. The most persistent, undeniable element of public scrutiny centers on his physical appearance. Johnson openly admitted to dabbling in anabolic steroids during his college football days, a revelation that forever colors the perception of his supernatural size. This was compounded by the speculation, and later his own confirmation, of undergoing gynecomastia surgery, male breast reduction, around 2005. While medically an aesthetic procedure to remove excess breast tissue, the admission put him in a rare category of male celebrities who publicly acknowledge cosmetic surgery. For a man whose entire brand is built on being the hardest worker in the room, this brief necessary breach in the wall of his perfection showed the lengths required to maintain his cinematic image. Beyond the aesthetic scrutiny, the foundation of Johnson's empire is built on two primary, aggressive, non-entertainment pillars. First, Terramana Tequila. Launched in 2020, this venture was a masterclass in direct-to-consumer branding, bypassing traditional celebrity endorsements to create a genuine, high-volume lifestyle product. It was a strategic, multi-million-dollar gamble that saw Johnson take a hands-on, highly personal approach to the product's promotion. Second, his long-running partnership with Under Armour for the Project Rock line of apparel and footwear. More than a simple licensing deal, this brand extension operates as a motivational movement, a direct commercialization of his workout philosophy.
Together with Danny Garcia, these ventures have cemented Johnson's status not merely as an actor, but as a true business mogul. The transition required an iron-fisted approach to intellectual property and brand protection, inevitably leading to high-profile lawsuits and conflicts with competitors and former associates who attempted to infringe on or leverage the globally recognized rock persona. Every victory on screen was matched by a strategic, often ruthless victory in the boardroom or the courtroom, protecting a brand worth billions. In January 2020, the foundation of Dwayne Johnson's emotional world was shaken by the unexpected death of his father, Rocky Johnson. Soul Man Rocky was a pioneer, one of the first black tag team champions in WWE history, and the complex, often absent figure who had trained Dwayne for his in-ring debut. Their relationship was turbulent, marked by the long-distance reality of the wrestling road, the father's own infidelities and struggles, and a deep-seated intergenerational tension. The death was a profound, public tragedy that forced Johnson to reconcile the myth of his father with the flawed, human reality. Rocky Johnson, aged 75, passed away suddenly from a heart attack. The announcement from Dwayne Johnson was an outpouring of raw, emotional complexity, broadcast across his massive social media platforms. His public eulogies were intensely personal, detailing the paradox of a man who was both his childhood hero and a source of profound, confusing conflict. He spoke of the relentless, tough love that his father instilled, the hard-ass discipline that ultimately forged his own work ethic. The public impact was immense, transcending the usual celebrity loss. It was an iconic figure, The Rock, allowing the world a deep, vulnerable glimpse into the messy, unresolved pain of his family dynamic. He orchestrated a beautiful, moving memorial service, covering all the costs, determined to give his father the dignified farewell that poverty had denied his own grandmother years before. The loss served as a devastating reminder that even the strongest man could not stop the passage of time or the finality of fate, forcing Johnson to lean on his own advocacy for mental health, acknowledging the emotional weight of unresolved familial trauma. The greatest challenge for any global icon is the risk of stagnation, of becoming a caricature of one's own success. For years, Johnson dominated the cinematic landscape with reliable, high-grossing action films and family adventures. Yet, critics and the industry often dismissed him as a star, never a serious actor. His entire career was built on his persona, not the depth of his performance. This perception defined his necessary most recent career pivot. The riskiest move of his career was not a theatrical debut or an attempt to win a major cinematic prize, but a deliberate, transformative choice to shed the mask of The Rock and embrace a truly challenging, dramatic role, the lead in the biopic, The Smashing Machine. Directed by auteur Benny Safdie, the film saw Johnson portray Mark Kerr, a two-time UFC heavyweight tournament champion whose life was derailed by opioid addiction, complex relationships, and the physical and mental toll of extreme fighting. This was an artistic and commercial suicide mission in the eyes of many. Johnson had to physically transform, losing his signature bulk and adopting a prosthetic nose and a world-weary gait, appearing unrecognizable. The performance was immediately hailed at film festivals as the true cinematic triumph of his career. It was not a Tony Award for a dramatic Broadway run, but the critical and industry acclaim for this role that finally elevated him from highest-paid movie star to serious cinematic artist. This was the technical and emotional breakthrough, proving his dramatic range and silencing the long-held industry cynicism. It was the ultimate professional reinvention, a bold, age-defying statement that he was prepared to sacrifice commercial comfort for artistic credibility. Just as his dramatic acting career reached its transformative peak, Johnson executed a stunning, age-defying comeback that merged all elements of his career into a single, cohesive narrative. It was not a massive late-career album or a world tour, but his unexpected and thunderous return to the WWE in 2024, adopting a new, sinister persona. The Final Boss. This was not the nostalgic return of the people's champion of old. This was a ruthless, villainous character, the ultimate corporate and wrestling authority figure. The transformation was technically and commercially a stroke of genius. It was a meta-narrative, allowing Johnson to acknowledge the immense power he now wields in Hollywood while simultaneously leveraging the nostalgia of his wrestling roots. He became the central catalyst in the biggest professional wrestling storyline in decades, culminating in a headline main event match at WrestleMania 40 after an 11-year hiatus. The commercial success was immediate and staggering. Record ticket sales, unprecedented merchandise revenue, and a media frenzy that blurred the lines between his film career and the ring. The technical success lay in the performance itself. At 52, Johnson trained with a ferocious intensity, demonstrating physical prowess that defied his age and the punishing demands of his film schedule. This late career comeback as the Final Boss was the perfect summation of his life. A man who had conquered every industry and now returned to his first domain not as a hero, but as the inevitable, indomitable force that controls the very landscape. It was the ultimate defiant move, confirming his status as the rare phenomenon capable of not just adapting to cultural change, but of unilaterally dictating it.
Today, Dwayne Johnson stands as a singularity in global entertainment, the only star whose career has successfully navigated the apex of professional wrestling, the highest echelons of Hollywood, and the creation of a multi-billion-dollar business empire, all while working closely with his former spouse. Where he is now, current residence and lifestyle. Johnson maintains residences across the United States, including a sprawling estate in the Los Angeles area and his custom-built farm on the East Coast. His lifestyle is one of controlled, disciplined opulence, dominated by his rigorous training regimen, intense family focus with his wife Lauren Haitian and their daughters, and the ceaseless demands of his business calendar. His life is less a series of breaks and more a seamless integration of work and family, an intentional rejection of the chaotic, absent parenting he experienced. What he is doing, current work, touring, or activism. He remains the co-founder of 7 Bucks Productions, driving an immense slate of film and television projects, including the distribution and promotion of The Smashing Machine and upcoming films like the live-action Moana. He is an active member of the board of directors of TKO Group Holdings, the parent company of WWE and UFC, and a co-owner of the United Football League, UFL. His activism is primarily focused on mental health advocacy, using his vast platform to encourage men to speak openly about depression, trauma, and emotional struggle, a direct lesson drawn from his own life and his family's history. he continues his intermittent, high-profile return to WWE as the final boss. Dwayne Johnson's enduring legacy is not defined by any single championship or box office record, but by his revolutionary transcendence of medium. He is the ultimate, self-designed brand architect who proved that a personality could become a permanent, billion-dollar economic force, unshackled by industry boundaries. He redefined what a celebrity could be, not just a performer, but a mogul, a producer, a business partner, and a genuine cultural advocate. He is the personification of the American ideal of self-made success, not from scratch, but from $7. His place in history is cemented as the only figure to dominate the cultural landscape across 3 distinct centuries of entertainment: the late 20th century wrestling boom, the 21st century blockbuster era, and the modern, vertically integrated business model. He is the standard-bearer for work ethic, a living monument built from muscle, ambition, and a calculated, strategic brilliance, forever reminding the world that the most formidable opponent he ever faced was the poverty and depression of his own past. He is, simply, the final boss of culture. And with that, the epic tale of the final boss reaches its conclusion. If any part of this documentary, whether it was the grinding struggle, the dramatic triumph, or a strategic decision, resonated with you or mirrored a good or bad experience in your own life, we want to hear about it. Your opinion on Dwayne Johnson's journey and his ultimate legacy is incredibly valuable to us. Do you think he's the greatest cross-platform star of all time? Please share your full thoughts on this documentary with us in the comment section below. And to stay connected with more in-depth documentaries and analytical news like this, keep following our channel. Your like, comment, and subscription fuel our work and give us the encouragement we need to keep making premium content. We need your full support. We'll see you soon with another compelling topic. Take care.